Welcome to Rhetorical Report. My name is Alex. This channel is all about leveling up your communication skills. And today we're going to look at the debate between Candace Owens and 20 feminists on Jubilee. So we got a clip here of somebody calling her out on her hypocrisy. So let's check it out.
All right. Jasmine, nice to meet you. Okay, so you say that women are more fulfilled at home with kids than going out into the workforce or getting educated, but that just really doesn't bear out when you look at the stats, when you look at how working mothers are way less likely to be in poverty. Maternal education is the #1 predictor of childhood outcomes, better scores, getting higher incomes in the future, fewer behavioral problems, better mental health. So it's weird to me and college-educated women are least likely to get divorced, and they're the only women, the top 10% of women are the only women whose marriage rates are going up. So they're getting married, they're staying married, and their kids are doing better. When you look at stay-at-home mothers, you see that they're more likely to report being depressed, they're more likely to report having anxiety and anger and all these types of things. So how can you say that? Seems like a woman, if you want to get married and have kids, you should go to college and have a career.
So it sounds to me like we are looking at totally different statistics, because everything that you said, I've actually read the exact opposite.
I'm glad we're on a fact check show with you.
Right, exactly.
Oh, it's so exciting.
That's going to be amazing. Okay, because I know, like I said, I think what we're talking about is that there was this widespread report on female happiness, and I know that it was formally debunked, and it was
That's not what I'm talking about. Pew Research, right. University of California.
So in this little exchange here, they're having a clear difference on the facts. So this is a disagreement about questions of fact. So they're using different research and studies to argue the same point, and they're also kind of like questioning each other's evidence as well. Now, remember that the claim Candace is making here, so they're meant to specifically debate one of the claims that Candace is bringing up, and this one is that specifically no career will give women as much joy and fulfillment as raising children. So that's what Candace is specifically trying to argue, which her opponents are meant to debate her on.
In fact, working mothers today spend more time with their children than women did in the 1960s that were at home.
Okay, well, women that are at home are obviously spending more time with their children than the people who are at work.
And their
today.
children are not faring off any better,
Right.
And they're faring off worse.
How are you measuring their children faring off worse?
How likely they are to higher incomes, better scores, fewer health problems, fewer behavioral issues, and better mental.
So the just to get back to the claim that I'm making here is that it is obvious that women who have children are going to be more fulfilled.
How is
right?
that obvious? Because you said so?
No, it's not obvious because I said so. It's because when you...
So saying that something is obvious is like a premise. And so the debater here is calling into question this premise Candace is bringing in.
Look at all the statistics in terms of women who are choosing not to have families. They are, as the person who just sat here before you mentioned, they are suffering from more depression. They're suffering from more anxiety. And
that's not true.
Okay, it is true. It is actually true that women who are choosing their careers over starting families are finding themselves leaning more onto medicines like Xanax, anxiety-inducing.
So I don't know if she's mentioning the specific study that they're bringing up here in the fact check, but there could be a few things going on. So this could just be like a situation where the correlation does not equal causation. So just because people are working more hours and taking more like prescription drugs, there could just be the fact that those people have health insurance and are more likely to seek out treatment for conditions which they have. And people who are not working as much might be less likely to seek out help and assistance if they have any mental health concerns. Also, the claim here that, let's just keep taking a look at the clip.
Medicines and depression, because they suspended that time frame where women really should be looking to find a partner and to start a family, because they were instead pursuing their careers.
And why are they better off?
It is a dishonest, it's totally a dishonest narrative that men and women want the same things out of life. We don't. We absolutely do not want the same things out of life. In fact, we don't even measure success the same. Men and women don't even measure success the same.
So,
okay?
but tell me how the women who are working and getting educated, why are they faring off better in all of these?
I am telling you that I do not believe they are faring off better in all of these measures.
Because of what?
I am telling you that we are looking at totally opposite statistics.
So is Candace saying that people who get an education and who are working are doing worse off than their counterparts. So I'm not quite sure where she's getting that, where she's like what she's backing that claim with.
Like, so you're sitting here telling me that the statistics show that women who are working are producing better children. But I am saying that women that grow up in a two-family home where the mother stays at home are faring off better than the children who are being raised in an environment
where the women are
working,
working,
where both of the parents are
so why don't you stay home?
And the other problem with that as well is that, so it could of course be that people who need two parents to work at the same time while raising children have more economic pressures and stressors. So again, it could be a false cause that she's bringing up here, that just because people where a single parent household where one single parent works and the other primarily raises the kids, that could just be a situation where there's more economic security. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the working in itself is the cause of faring worse off. And, we'd have to get into the weeds with actually looking at those studies as well. But here's where she actually calls her out on her own personal contradiction on this point. So check this out.
From the home. I do get to work from home.
No. But
that's the irony.
I've watched your show. You talk about all the nannies you hire, and it's so hard to find a good nanny.
I talked about all of the nannies I hire.
Yeah,
but
you have.
I spoke
and
about.
It's kind of confusing because Candace is saying that people are happier if they're at home with their kids rather than working. But then now she's kind of moving the goalposts and saying that, well, she works at home, so it's not the same as working because she works at home. So it's a little confusing how the way that she's bringing that into the argument.
About how difficult it was to find a babysitter who knew how to cook a meal. And that's because
you don't need a babysitter. You're already, you could retire right now.
You have to let people respond to you when they're speaking.
You don't want to.
To respond to you when
you don't want to. You want
this
to be
embarrassing
working,
to
which
go
is
back and
great.
forth like this for a little
You're
while,
telling me
so
what I
just
want
saying
now and then accusing me of telling you.
Wait, you don't want to work?
Can you just let me finish? Because you've said so many words that what you're trying to do here, like your argument style, is I'm going to say so much and not let her get a word in and then walk away and feel like I've won. We're not having a conversation because you've not letting me respond to one of your points. What I am saying to you, first to answer what you just said, which was a lie, what I spoke to you about on the weekends is that it's been increasingly difficult to find a 25-year-old who even knows how to make boxed macaroni and cheese, right? And that's crazy. That is in large part due to feminism. Women don't even focus. Like there's this idea that women shouldn't be cooking. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with women even learning how to cook.
Are you
know
spending
what I mean?
as much time with your children as you possibly?
So she just made the claim that women do not learn how to cook because of feminism. So that's just kind of a wild claim. We could go really deep into that claim. It's clearly, a false cause again, in that she's attributing young people not learning cooking skills to feminism, which I don't think is the case.
Possibly can, because that's the way to get the most fulfillment.
No, and that's what I'm trying to say. I am speaking to you
then stop.
Okay, could you please let somebody get in
I did.
a word edgewise?
I let you finish.
You're not. You actually have not let anybody finish.
And
like I said, it's no one benefits when you're just speaking over me and not allowing me to respond. All you're proving is that you have an attitude and you believe in feminism, but you're not. That's what I'm saying.
There's nothing worse than when somebody says, let me finish, without actually making their and completing their point. So this is a little bit of a frustrating exchange.
You just have an attitude, and it's not cute. It's performative.
I love if you address my point. I will be quiet if you address my point.
Does anybody actually feel here that I am being allowed to address any of her points when she just keeps running over me?
Okay.
Like I'm literally trying to answer your first point of you saying that I don't stay at home.
Yeah,
fair point.
Really weird. Yeah.
Fair point. Obviously, I get that you're all anti-Candace and pro-feminist, but also it's not productive if you're not actually.
Okay, address the point. You spend more time saying that I'm not addressing, that you don't have a chance to talk when you the whole time.
So really, what Candace is doing here, she's stalling, she's equivocating, and instead of actually addressing this inconsistency that she's calling for people to like bow out of the workforce to become mothers, and then she herself is a very strong working person, all the while espousing these positions. It's almost like having to respond to that kind of like breaks her train of thought.
Time you could have addressed the point. Okay. You could have talked.
I
go for it.
Just want you to know that you're not coming across as somebody who wants to actually have a conversation. So to get back to the claim, because I don't even know where you're at. You're now talking. You're saying that I said stuff in my podcast.
I'll go wherever you want to go.
I never said.
I'll go wherever.
So do you want to start with me working at home? Because I work at home. You just said something about me working at home.
You travel all around the world.
Okay,
you do speeches, and I love that. I love how ambitious you are. That's a really great trait. And if you were truly said that, you would be more fulfilled. Now, one thing you do find is women, they don't want to stay at home when you poll them. They just want flexible working hours and flexible working conditions like you have. And I think we should all advocate for that. It's not one or the other. But when you sit here and you go, you'll be more fulfilled doing this, then spend all your time doing that. We would love for you to leave the public eye and go focus on what makes you fulfilled.
Okay.
Okay, so that was kind of like the showstopper there in this debate, where she just really calls out Candace's basic hypocrisy and putting her character and credibility into question. Because how can she tell people to stay at home and not work, all the while she's incredibly successful? She spent her basically whole adult life being a very strong working person, building this incredible career as a media personality. She's written best-selling books. And, here she is like going on this kind of tour to promote her upcoming book, which, by the way, so the claim that she makes here sounds a little bit almost, you could squirm your way into saying that this is reasonable, that no career will give women as much joy and fulfillment as raising children. But her upcoming book is called Make Him a Sandwich. So just so you have in mind what she's really arguing here, that is not a reasonable statement to make to anyone. And yet, when called out on that, she can't really respond to it at all. It's like, well, how do you reconcile the fact that you're telling people to stay home, but you're working? And she just won't answer the question. Another really important thing to consider here. So putting your character into question. So this could be like a character attack, which in some debate situations you would want to avoid, as it's an ad hominem, fallacy. But I posed this question on TikTok and Instagram, and I had an overwhelming response that people felt that it was very fair to put her character into question because she's somebody who is so outspoken on these issues. Credibility is an important consideration with being persuasive. It's one of the rhetorical proofs of logic, of emotions, and credibility. So let's talk about her credibility. One thing that she hides, she conceals this and really doesn't like to talk about this. You wouldn't really know unless you looked into it. So, of course, she's a very successful person. She's amassed, I'm sure some financial security on her own accord. Then, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, so she married into exorbitant generational wealth. So if you look into her husband, his name is George Farmer. So he comes from like British generational wealth. His father, Lord Michael Farmer, was a politician and a businessman. And her husband, George, he was like a tech bro and became part of the Parler app, which was meant to be like a right-wing alternative to Twitter before Twitter became a right-wing, thing that it is now as X. So he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars collectively, on top of like the family fortune as well. So as such, Candace is now a beneficiary of generational wealth and hundreds of millions of dollars. So keep that in mind when she's making these arguments about encouraging people to bow out of the workforce to raise families, in that she's somebody who has nannies, chefs, housekeepers, never has to worry about healthcare costs, living expenses. Her and her husband could quit their jobs, never work a day in their lives, and be more wealthy and have a higher quality life than you or I could ever imagine. Just think about that for a second when she's making these kinds of arguments. And even given that, she still chooses to work and to, spend time away from family duties to go on a, contentious show like this and to put her, family life at risk by having all this heat and flack on her with all of the, extraordinary claims that she makes. And it's not even getting into some of her more contentious claims that she makes outside of this exchange here. She has a long history of spreading conspiracy theories. She was, fired from the Daily Wire for what they would have considered anti-Semitism. I think she was even banned from Australia and New Zealand for what they said were anti-Semitic remarks. So, and if you look at her now, she's getting all this heat for claiming that France's Prime Minister Macron's wife is a man. So that's like her latest crusade, is saying that this is a man. So even though, there's really no serious evidence to support this. She's also called into question Kamala Harris's identity and who her real parents were. So she has a habit of making these provocative, extreme claims which have no real basis. And clearly she's like, a very smart, person who's able to express herself incredibly. She's a good communicator. She's amassed an incredible career in media, and yet she still makes these extreme statements. So calling her credibility into question, I think, is quite reasonable and makes her arguments much weaker because of where she's coming from. So in this debate here, Jubilee knows this is going to rage everybody out. If we just look at some of the comments down here, we got to take a look at some of these comments, shall we? You got to love the first comments. Let's see. Oh, let's sort by top comments. The top people are voted out. The comments people are voted out. Respectful people voted out. So that is a problem when you're trying to have a productive debate. A lot of people, I think, they deleted comments. I was seeing some comments here earlier about how frustrated people were with Jubilee, and I don't see those anymore. So I think that they actually deleted a lot of comments on this video because people were kind of calling out how it's just pure, unadulterated rage bait that Jubilee is just, throwing out there and spewing out into the world to get people all fired up and angry for nothing. And the greatest irony of all here is that Jubilee claims to be a company that aims to spread empathy through these conversations and different formats that they provide here. And I don't think most people's first emotion upon seeing a Jubilee debate is empathy. I think it's rage. And I would say rage is the opposite of empathy here. So Jubilee knows what it's doing when it frames these arguments. And as much as it can be interesting to look at these arguments and discern the claims people are making and kind of figure out who you thought had better arguments, is it productive in the final analysis? I don't think that it is. Maybe we can learn how to become better arguers through looking at these debates, but for the general population, these just, I think, cause us to become more, fractured as a society, in my view. But that's just my take on this. So what did you think of this Jubilee debate with Candace Owens? Did you think she ended up looking good in the situation, or do you think that her credibility is such that it just totally undermines everything that she tries to say? So let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this, and do me a favor and subscribe, like this video, and I'll keep making more of them, and I'll see you in the next one.